Hello, this is Patrick Riley. This is a brief presentation for History 711. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about freedom and liberty. And since today is the 227th anniversary of the Battle of Bower Hill on July 15, 1794, I could not help but place a Whiskey Rebellion flag on my presentation. The Whiskey Rebellion took place in western Pennsylvania, and it had a lot to do with liberty and freedom. The first person we're going to talk about is Cicero. Cicero he lived 106 to 43 BC, and he said that liberty consists in the power of doing that which is permitted by the law. Aristotle, 384 to 322 BC, said freedom is obedience to self-formulated rules. Thomas Aquinas, 1225 to 1274, said that since man is in God's image, insofar as that image implies intelligence and free choice, it remains to consider man as the source of his own actions. He went on further to say, but man is master of his acts through reason and free will. Now the object of the will is some end or good. Hence all human acts must be for the sake of an end. Thomas Hobbes, 1588 to 1679, defined liberty as the absence of external impediments, or the absence of hindrance to doing whatever man has the will, wit, and ability to do. John Locke, one of the most influential thinkers of his time and a great influence on the founding fathers, especially Thomas Jefferson, said there were four concepts of freedom: political freedom, a circumstantial freedom of self-realization, a natural freedom of self-determination, and an acquired freedom of self-perfection. And Thomas Jefferson, 1743 to 1826. The closest he ever came to actually defining liberty was in a letter that he wrote to one of his friends. And in that letter he said, liberty is unobstructed action according to our will. But rightful liberty is unobstructed action according to our will within limits drawn around us by the equal rights of others. And the best definition that I found, and I'm sure that there are others, was in an article that was written by Andy Snyder, who was an author and founder of Manward Press. He wrote an article, What We're Fighting For. And I think he summed up the terms rather well, and that's why I chose him to close my presentation. And he quoted Ronald Reagan in March of 1961. And Reagan said, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. Or one day we will spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it was once like in the United States where men were free. And he goes on to say, what is the subtle but critical differences between freedom and liberty? Our culture tends to think the two terms are interchangeable, and they are not. Understanding them will change the way you think and live. And he goes on to say, freedom is a word that simply means the ability to make decisions or perform actions without external control. Liberty, on the other hand, means freedom that has been granted by some sort of external element, typically our society or government. Simply put, freedom is something we are born with, and liberty is something we must fight for. The critical thought is that liberty must be granted by an external force. And he closes by saying, America's founding fathers believed freedom was a God-given right. Few folks know that they left it up to the government to grant its citizens the liberties to take advantage of that right.